Mike in Ohio who would like to talk about being a polytheist. And Mike, you're on with Matt and Mike. Are you there?
Matt, JMike, hey, I love you guys. Thank you so much for taking my call, Matt.
Absolutely,
it's an honor to talk to you, man. Matt,
well, you'll get over it.
Through Bible. I don't think so. When I was going through Bible college, I started really questioning the scriptures and the Bible, and I actually thought I was being attacked by demons, you know. And the one time you popped up on my queue on YouTube, I don't know how, and I started watching, and you really helped me get through that. And I just want to thank you so much for that.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I am still a theist, a polytheist, a pagan, and a heathen. And one thing I want to touch on real quick is I do find community with atheists, because so many of the calls that you all take, you know, because of the dominant Abrahamic Christian worldview, we do have common ground on that. And also in that worldview, not only do I deny, you know, that we need Christ for salvation in the Bible, but I do follow other gods. And it's a weird situation. I called in last week and talked to Katie and Lloyd, and it gave me the nerve to call because they didn't talk to you. Yeah, I'm kind of nervous about being on the phone. I always did my individual research, trying to find what I thought was true on theology and history, and I never ever really did science. I mean, I went to college 30 years ago. I can't remember that stuff. So I'm very uneducated in that, and I'm trying to learn. And so what I wanted to talk about was how I kind of see creation as a pagan and a heathen. And my view on deity, I mean, every pagan and heathen is different, you know, but I see it like kind of like pantheistic and like with deism. You know, it's there. There's an intelligence of the universe. It's not real active with us.
Well, hey, let's start with that real quick.
Yeah, because those words aren't the same.
You're saying intelligence. I'm wondering like how it is you inferred intelligence with the universe. It seems to be. I mean, there seems to be some mechanism that you have there the reason why you've gotten to that conclusion.
It would be creation, things in creation that I think have some intelligent design to them.
What do you mean? What do you mean by creation, Mike? Do you mean like because that might sneak in a creator, right? And I'm just going to disagree with that. So I don't really know what you mean by creation. Do you mean the fact that does that incorporate naturalistic ways of life forming, or is that just for a specific deity?
It does. It's with polytheism. There's like soft polytheists and hard polytheists, you know, who believe in the gods or then view this divine as a representation through that cultural belief as connecting with those gods. I can't prove any of that. I mean, there's shared personal gnosis and verified personal gnosis, and you can't prove any of that stuff. I will admit to that. But from what little bit I do know about science, and remember, as being a pagan and a heathen, I'm kind of, you know, referring to what might be nature's God that I even had trouble explaining. But I mean, I believe in evolution for sure, and I believe in the natural selection, of course. But
well, hey, hold on, let's go back, because when you're looking at it from that standpoint, I'm wondering, you're saying you don't know, but you've also somehow detected that there's intelligence. It almost sounds like you're saying that nature could have this consciousness. But then you're saying you don't know. So I'm wondering how you know that that's the case. Like how there has to be some steps at which that was the case. It can't just be of some ignorance where you go, well, it must be the case this way, or incredulity to say like, I can't imagine it some other way. Like what was the actual method for you to get there?
I might have what, if this is the right phrase to use, what someone might call existential angst of not wanting to give up on the divine. What Katie, when I called last week, she really...
Mike,
yeah.
Mike, let's, okay, because so you've talked about polytheism, soft and hard, you're a pagan, you're a heathen, pantheism, deism, you rolled in there, personal gnosis, and now when we're trying to get down to the how and why behind your belief, you say, well, maybe I might have some existential angst about wanting to hang on to the divine. Do you think that's a good reason to believe anything?
No.
Then why on earth would you hold a belief, and the reason that you give us for that belief, you immediately acknowledge is not a good reason for that belief. And so I'm genuinely confused, because the only way I can make sense of that is that you don't care about the truth. And so you're just going to believe whatever it is you feel a desire to believe, while acknowledging you don't have a good reason. I can't do that. I can't even wrap my head around it. Like, I don't want to, like, I'm fine with believing things and finding out I had a bad reason. But as soon as I have a bad reason, I can't keep believing them. And I'm confused as to how or why you could. So if maybe you could help us there.
Sure. Well, I watch you guys a lot. I subscribe. I really feel community with you. And through watching these over the years, I've started kind of questioning my own. And like I said, I'm very uneducated in science. So when I talked to Lloyd, he recommended I get some books. So I got one on human evolution, Charles River editors. It's a quick read. It's only 55 pages. I know that won't be enough, but I'm going to research the resources on here, the references, when I get through this book. But one thing that I'm jumping around a lot, because I'm just
because I really don't think that had anything to do with the question. But I mean, if we can try and get on track, because the whole thing here, the key to all the stuff that JMike and I do, whether it's Atheist Experience, Talk Heathen, etc., is tell us what you believe and why. You've told us that you're a polytheist, pagan, heathen, pantheist, deist, and the why is possibly because of you just really want there to be a divine. Now the next question is, if you acknowledge that that's a bad reason for believing something, do you have any good reason for believing? And if you don't, how can you keep believing something knowing you don't have a good reason?
There's one question with creation and the human reproductive system that keeps me hanging on, that there's a design to it.
That there's a design, you said?
Yes. There's some intelligence to it.
How would you, okay, we have one universe to look at right now. How do you differentiate between a universe that's designed and a universe that isn't?
I don't know.
Yeah, so for me, it sounds like you're going back to the I really want to believe it thing. Like I would really want to, like, I love philosophy, and I would really want for libertarian free will to be true, right? Like, that would be cool, would be great. I don't think the science points to that. And even if I was to say, like, you know, if I have all the good reasons to abandon that belief, like, why? Of course I'd want that, but I don't know why I would hold on to that in virtue of new information that tells me otherwise. I feel like that would just be, at that point, you're just deceiving yourself.
That's one thing that fascinates me also, and makes me, wonder, like, is someone who is a theist, like not as strong, I can't think of the word I want to use, not so self-assured as someone who's an atheist, like where someone is a theist just might want to keep this belief because they feel that they just need something higher than themselves, where they are too scared.
Feeling like you need something higher or scared is not remotely getting to the aspect of whether or not the claim is true. I mean, you have a specific proposition that you believe is true, right? You take that proposition, you say, that is true, I believe it. You might not claim that you have knowledge in the proposition.
For the record, and I apologize, I'm not convinced he has a specific proposition. I think he has a really vague proposition.
Sure. But there's something there that you think is the case. But it sounds like the only method you're using is that I just really, really want that to be the case. I really want a lot of things to be the case. I want $1 million in my bank account right now. I want to solve financial issues and things like that. But my emotions aren't going to have any direct causal relation to that. That's just entirely independent. If I believe in whatever proposition it is, I have independent attestation or evidence for that claim outside of my emotions or how I feel about it. But if I'm only relying about how I feel about it, I mean, does that sound like that is a good mechanism to get to truth? Or does that sound like you could potentially find multiple wrong answers in virtue of you appealing to your emotions?
Yes, I agree. I would have to agree with that. And that's why I was explaining, I've always done my own path to the truth through theology and history. And now I'm really, after watching you guys for so long, I'm really going to dig into some science. And
well, Mike, you keep going back into the science. This has nothing to do with the science or anything. You're almost admitting you don't know. Why don't you just say you don't know?
I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. Let me try this. Let me try a slightly different tact. If you found out that somebody believed in Jesus and their reason was fear and ignorance, what would you tell them?
That's not a very good reason to hold on to that belief.
Okay. Would that also be true if you found somebody who believed in Allah for fear and ignorance?
Yes.
What about Thor?
Yes, put that way, yes.
What about an afterlife?
That's vague. There's not a whole lot known. The path that I follow would be the Germanic.
It's not vague. I don't know why you jumped away, Mike. I don't know why you jumped away. But the question is, what would you say to someone who believed in an afterlife out of fear and ignorance?
That's not a good reason to believe that.
Same thing for lucky socks, right?
Right.
Right. Which means it's also true for polytheism, paganism, heathenism, pantheism, deism, everything you've listed. So we're back to where we started, where you acknowledge that you don't have a good reason. The only thing I'm trying to get is that I genuinely, don't get me wrong. I understand that people believe in things for bad reasons. We see it all the time on all of these shows. What I'm not used to is someone saying, I believe in this and I know I have a bad reason, and that's not enough for me to stop believing. Why do you think it's not enough for you to stop believing? What is it providing you that you need?
It helps me feeling that there is that I can't prove, but feeling that there is something higher than me that can help me. That is a big reason to cling on to this faith.
Okay. But if you're wrong and you think there's something higher, I don't know what higher than you means, but I get it. That's what people use. If you think there's something wrong or something higher than you that can help you, and it turns out you're wrong, wouldn't it have been better to not believe that there was something higher than you that could help you so that you could find something that actually would help you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So why not just say, I'm not a polytheist because I'm not convinced that that's correct. I'm not a pagan. I'm not a heathen because I'm not convinced that that's correct. But what I am is someone who's genuinely searching and seeking to find what is true. And if there's nobody up there, if there's nothing, no agency above you that's higher than you that's going to help you, then every minute you've spent believing it or relying on it is a complete waste, and it's prevented you from finding the things that could help you. It's the same thing. It's exactly the same as the people who, the Jehovah's Witnesses who won't go get a blood transfusion because their God says so, or the people who won't go see a doctor because they think prayer is going to heal them. You are doing the same thing. The other day, recently, someone asked me if I thought paganism was harmful. And I said, yes, because all magical thinking is potentially harmful. It impacts how you make decisions. It impacts what sort of things you're going to believe in. It's not, beliefs don't just live in a vacuum. It's not like you can just say, well, I kind of think the universe is maybe God and maybe there's something there that might help me, and then pretend like that belief doesn't impact anything. It absolutely impacts other decisions you make. Otherwise, why have it? It's like I like Marvel movies. I don't think they're the best. I don't rely on them for things, but I like them. But if they weren't doing me any good at all, why would I want to watch them? Why would I want to spend time with it? If it just gives you pleasure, that's fine. And acknowledging that you believe something because it gives you pleasure to do so, it's not a good reason, or not necessarily a good enough reason, depending on the belief. But Martin Gardner, who is viewed as the father of modern scientific skepticism, was a theist. The difference between Martin Gardner and most theists, and the difference between Martin Gardner and most skeptics, is that he would willingly acknowledge that he did not have good skeptical grounds for his theism, that he believed it because it was something he liked and he did not see the harm in it. And I'm convinced that if we could have sat down with Martin and showed him what harm there is, not only in the idea and in expressing the idea, that he would have been honest enough to give it up. I hope that you find a way to do that too, as you have with past beliefs, because it sounds like you're willing to acknowledge you don't have a good reason. You kind of just want to believe it. It's optimism and hope. But I hope that you someday see that hanging on to things because you think they're going to benefit you is only ever the rational course of action if those things are sincerely likely to benefit you.
I never, just like with what Katie told me last week about the about evolution, I never looked at it that way before, Matt. And I'm at a point now where, I'm searching again, and that's why I wanted to call and talk to you. You've definitely gave me some stuff to think about, just like you did the first time.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I'd think about the cascading effect that you have when you allow magical reasoning into one aspect of your life. Like, where does that stop? Right. And you can just use that exact thing for other explanations in the world. And so you just have this cascading effect of just applying the same thing that was wrong from the beginning. People do this when they presuppose certain things, certain ontology before they start their work. Right? You would already have messed up at the beginning. It's not going to be fruitful to keep making that error in your life, or to allow that reason when there's just no demonstrated way to substantiate that even being a reason.
I can see that point.
Well, Mike, we appreciate the call. We're gonna move on to other callers, but yeah, please call back and yeah, call us back and let us know.
Thank you all so much.
You're welcome, Mike. Thank you for calling.
I love you guys. You all take care. Have a good time.
Love you too. See you.
We hope to hear back to find out, did you change your mind? Did you find something that was useful? Did you discover that you actually have good evidence for those beliefs and not just, bad arguments and desire? All of that's good. Like, granted, JMike and I don't know each other particularly well, but I've watched enough that I am convinced that if someone actually had a legitimately sound evidence-based argument for God, all of a sudden neither of us would be atheists.
Yeah, that's how it works. I would say my aspects of skepticism would remain the same, but at least this label has changed. Now I'm at least a theist, but I still am going to apply the same standards of evidence that I've always had, and none of that will change. I mean, and if anything, if we find some other thing where we can say, well, this thing actually exists, then maybe I can adjust my standards of evidence accordingly and come closer to knowledge in that way. So
yeah,